Good morning, Charlene.
Good morning.
Welcome to Barcelona.
Thank you.
How has your life changed since writing Groundswell?
I don't get recognized in airports. I don't necessarily, hear from people all the time. But what's interesting is, in the beginning, people said this is the thing that has really opened my eyes to what's possible, and more than anything else, it's really fueled my research ongoing because I hear from people about how they're using these tools, and also how it's changed the way that they work. They change organizations. And now I'm hearing from people who said, I changed my career because of this book, because it's been a while now, 4 years since we wrote the book. So I think it more than anything else, it's, we talked a little bit about this before, how grateful I feel that people read the book and find it useful.
And if you were to summarize the message you're about to share with the audience here today into a minute, what are we going to take from the session today?
I can put it into 3 words.
3 words.
Yeah, it's about relationships. The key thing that people think about these technologies is that, oh, it's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's all these cool new technologies. That's not what matters. What really matters is the relationships you can create and the relationships you can deepen. And that is true about business, and because these things are changing the way that relationships work, they're changing the way business works.
Can you give an example of a relationship that has changed for you?
I think, again, sort of what I talk about with research. In the past, if I wanted to do research, I had to find people and interview them. Now I put out a tweet. I have 60-some thousand people following me on Twitter. I say, please go fill out the survey. And I say, if you'd like to be interviewed for this, please let us know. And we can see from the interviews, we've got a couple hundred now responses in about 12 hours. And it's completely transformed the way I do that. I crowdsource my logos, my examples, the book cover, the book title was crowdsourced. So it's really changed the way I work.
And for someone like me that maybe crowdsource is a new word, what does that mean?
It means I have a particular problem and I put it out to the crowd to help me solve that problem. And so, in this case, I couldn't agree with my publisher on what the title should be for the book, and so I asked people for ideas, and then we narrowed it down to about 4 different ideas, and we put it up for a vote.
And if I'm in front of a computer now, what do I do to build these relationships?
You have to go find what it is, you have to figure out what your goal is in business, and who you're trying to build a relationship with, your customers, your employees, your partners. And then see where it is that they are. People say, where do I find these customers? Do a search, find out what topics they're talking about that you would want to talk about with them. So I just go onto Twitter and I just put in the search name of a company and see what everyone is saying about the company. And then it's up to you to decide, do you want to have a conversation with them? And
Facebook usage, it's a good thing then for companies?
I think it's good if the company wants to have that relationship. I see a lot of times though that companies are out there saying, hey, here's our message. They're using it as a traditional marketing channel versus a communication channel, and one that allows people to have a dialogue. When people go onto Facebook, they're not necessarily shouting at each other, they're sharing. And they're sharing with the hope that it will spark a conversation. But I don't get the sense that many companies are really there for the conversation. They're there for the transaction, to make the sale, for you to become a fan, and then I'll be able to leverage and do something with that and monetize that fandom. And frankly, as a consumer, I don't want you to monetize me. I want you to listen to me, create products that I'm going to love. It's a very different type of relationship that I'm looking for.
And are there some examples of companies or people within companies that have done this well?
I think there are many companies that are starting to do this out there, but I think companies like Dell, Best Buy, I think Starbucks has really, they've really embraced what this can do and really thought deep and hard about what kind of relationship they want with their customers. And as a result, what they do in these channels really reflects that too.
How will this change a business school?
I think the way that business schools teach what it means to be a great leader, a great manager, a great strategist, has to take into account how relationships are changing. So if the traditional way you think about leadership in organizations is through a hierarchy, what happens when that hierarchy is actually flattened because of these technologies? What happens when the top level person can speak to the front level person seamlessly with no friction? What happens to information sharing? What happens to decision making in an environment like that? This is completely new.
As I listen, the fear that comes to me is if as a leader you're suddenly open to communication from everybody, how do you not have your email inbox collapse, your Facebook messages collapse? What can you do so that you don't end up spending all your time now dealing with this communication?
Well, I think that the key thing here is that you don't have to respond to everything, whereas the email inbox is trained so that you have to respond to everything, but a lot of people share information just as an FYI. And so I can read a lot faster. I can scan, I can prioritize based on other people saying this is an important message to be looking at. And as a result, me as a CEO, as a leader, can understand what's happening much better and faster than having to depend on other people to filter it for me.
And what are the typical questions that business managers, business leaders would ask you?
They ask me, how do I feel comfortable with this whole idea of giving up control? That's the main part. They ask, what's the ROI of social media? Which I think is the wrong question. The better question is, how do I get value out of social media for my business? How do I understand it and extract as much value out of these relationships? People often ask, what about B2B? I actually got asked that on Twitter. Please talk about B2B today. So I will be emphasizing that more. People ask about, how do I get started? Who's the best person to do this inside my organization? They ask, should I be outsourcing it?
If someone here today has been asked by their company to take a lead role on social media, you say return on investment's not the right measure. What measure should they be telling their leaders that they should look at?
I think it all depends on your objectives. So if your objective is to have greater customer satisfaction across the board, that should be your goal, that should be a metric. So how are you measuring customer satisfaction? Then you can go pre and post with social media. You can say, do we do better account mitigation, risk mitigation, satisfaction, solve problems better, faster? Do we prevent them? Do we go out there and proactively see them? So all of these things add up to better customer satisfaction. Does it actually work? And more importantly, can we do it on a more cost-effective basis? Because it doesn't matter if you can do it really well, but if it's really expensive people doing it, it's not going to make much of a difference. So there's that cost-benefit analysis, classic business sense. It's interesting. I find that oftentimes when people think about social media, they think it's so different and new that all sensible business practices go out the window. And what I'm trying to say back, these are business fundamentals of objectives, having clear metrics against those objectives, finding the people who can execute against that. And it's execution that matters in the end.
What are your interests now? What questions are you investigating now?
Well, this research that I was talking about is the use of social networks inside the organization, so enterprise social networks, and how that is transforming businesses. So what are the use cases for that? Is it just water cooler? We see people doing more things around streamlining processes, very specific business processes, everything down to expense reports, getting streamlined and having an activity stream around expense reports, to CEOs saying, I need to put this in so that it transforms the organization. So I'm looking at enterprise social networks, I'm looking at disruptive technologies, what are the trends, how do companies think about them, what are the right technologies for them to be following, how do I figure that out? And then the topic that I'm looking at as a larger topic is how do you build resilience in your organization and at the same time build the ability to innovate.
What does resilience look like in an organization?
A lot of flexibility, a tremendous amount of flexibility, because I find that rigid organizations tend to crack. They tend not to be able to be flexible. But we're not talking about so much flexibility that anybody can do anything. So you need some structure. So how do you build that into not just the top team, but all the way down and around your organization? And that same level of flexibility allows somebody to take a disruption and flip it and make it an innovation.
Oh, if I move to another area of my life, as a parent, I have a 4-year-old daughter. My next door neighbor has an 8, a 10, and a 13-year-old. What should I be helping develop? What should I be worried about?
Worried about a lot. I have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old, and we have from a very early age taught them how to be very aware of what's online. So when they're searching, what's a good search? How can you tell what's good or not? So a lot of literacy, content and media literacy. We also have a lot of software on our computers that limits how much time they can be online. So instead of me telling them to shut off their computers, they do it. And I think so you have to talk about limitations. And then the third thing we do is we teach them a lot of responsibility what identity means. They're in a special situation where their parent is fairly well known, and I want to make sure that they're not known until they're ready to take on that scrutiny. And so they know not to share their identity. My son runs a server, and he has to provide customer support. He uses Skype so people talk to him, but he goes, for security reasons, I can't talk to you. So he only types back. So things like that, and they're very, very aware of how to blog, how to be on Facebook, and protect their identity.
Excellent. Charlene, welcome to Barcelona. Thank you for spending time with me here this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.